3, 2, 1. Welcome to Bellwether. Thank you for being here this week again. On this podcast today, what we're going to be talking about, you're going to hear me, you often hear me talk about your inner dialogue and the importance of your inner dialogue and what that actually means and the conversation of your inner dialogue and all that stuff. And I talked a lot about that in dealing with the pandemic. I talked a lot about that when we talked burnout and recovery and all of that other stuff. We talked about that a lot when I went over my wellness stuff last year, putting down my ideas on wellness and all of that. So I want to go in two directions today because we are at the end of the year. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's this confluence of many different things that are coming together. So if you're French, I chatted burnout, recovery, etc. over the past few weeks. And I want to chat about how your inner dialogue will help with that as it gets more difficult in the coming months. So if we're going to put a timestamp on this, end of 2020, pandemic's still going. We have a little bit of hope for, everything opening up in the coming year, but we still have the winter coming. We still have a lot of time inside. We still have a lot of uncertainty. And so what we're going to need is going to evolve. And it's going to be very heavily focused on what you need as an individual. So that's one part I'm going to cover. But then two, because I do like to bring this into work stuff, I can't always just talk about kind of the personal stuff. I always want this to be a work-focused type of response because that's generally what I do. It's the life and work aspect of coaching. So we're at the end of the year, and we need to have our 2021 goals. And in order to hit those goals, we need to build our platform to get there. And what I mean by that is every year at the end of the year, or you should anyway, you should have your plan and goals for the next year. And that's just generally what we do. And I used to go up to this one place in Ithaca, and I used to write out all my goals for the next year, and it was really good. It's a nice way to sit back, talk about everything that you want to accomplish. Are you on the right track? Are you doing what you set out to originally do? Do a nice little year in review. Just take an hour, 2 hours. It doesn't have to be anything big. And you just write out everything that you want to do in the next year. Biggest dream, whatever. And then you go back and you look at it and say, is this really possible? And then you put your plan together. And that's what we do. Well, our old way of doing this is done right now. And it's sidetracked. So in order to keep focus on what we're looking to accomplish and what we're able to accomplish and continue to evolve and develop and improve from a business perspective, from an individual perspective, from a small business owner perspective or a management perspective or a leadership perspective, insert perspective here, we need to properly build the platform to make sure that we get there. And we need to make sure that we are at the start line in the right way to make sure that we can execute. So in order to do that, we have to switch. We have to switch from the big picture, the macro, this is, what's going on and what I want to accomplish and everything else, down to you, the micro. And you're going to hear me talking a lot over the next month with the book launch of macro versus micro. Macro change requires a focus on micro you. And that's what we talk about when we talk about being present, when we talk about focusing on what you can control, when we talk about all these things. We're really talking about responding to macro change requires a focus on micro you. So we need to ask the question this week. I'm actually asking two questions this week, but the initial question is, are you building your platform for a successful hit of your goals in the coming year? And I don't want to throw you this one extra thing that I have to focus on right now, right? The schools are closed, my kid's at home, I got work and blah, 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 blah. This is a small exercise, but we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the moment to make sure that we can execute later down the road. Our future and where we stand at the end of 2021 is going to be the result of decisions we make today. And some of those are thrust upon us, right? We have no choice. We have to make certain types of decisions, and that's fine. But we can make other decisions that can better set us up in 2021 and beyond. So they're both linked. This and the stress of dealing with a pandemic. And I have the same tactic strategy to deal with this stuff, and that's the inner dialogue, and that's what coaches work with you on, and getting that inner dialogue going. But when we talk about inner dialogue, what does that really mean? And building your inner dialogue takes practice. And I touch on it and I joke about it a little bit, and I have a very robust inner dialogue because I'm about 17 degrees crazy. But I work with my clients a lot on this, and we have to get this conversation going in our head to coach ourselves in the moment. We have to coach ourselves in the moment, and that's what your inner dialogue is all about. So our minds are racing in a moment. We have so many thoughts, fears, memories, etc. Our brains are just fantastic at distracting us from what we need to do, and when we need our brain to work well for us, it's very good to distract us. So the first question I usually teach people to ask when we're talking about an inner dialogue, to start their inner dialogue, is when we have this type of stress or whatever, ask yourself the question, what do I need right now in this moment? And that's your question for you. As we get overwhelmed, as we deal with stress, as we deal with something, as we sit with procrastination, I mean, this could be for anything. I'm going to cover a lot of the different ways, but what do I need in this moment right now? And the conversation begins. Maybe if you think you're hungry, you stop, you ask yourself the question, what do I need right now? It may just be a glass of water. Or you may think you're hungry, but what you really need is something to occupy your time. Or whatever. Insert something here. Maybe you need a nice, big, healthy salad or some good life choice that you're making in the moment. That's how we make change, okay? We make change over time, incremental moments. We take them at the time, in the moment. We ask ourselves, what do I need right now? That's it. And the inner dialogue, this conversation you have, gets you to where you need to go. And I was going to say it gets you past the resistance. If you've read, there's a book, The War of Art, it's called, by Stephen Pressfield. It's a great book. I thought it was phenomenal. I recommend it. I do, yes, go. It's primarily a book written for the artistic type, the people looking to write a book. I guess it's for writers, and how to get past that writer's block, and all kinds of other things, and how to be creative and everything. It's a great read. But in it, he talks about something called the resistance. And the resistance are all those factors in the world working against you to get shit done. That's the resistance. So things like procrastination. We're all very good at finding reasons why we can't do something right now, when we really need to do something in order to make progress. The mindset that we have to saying you can't do this. It's all about all these reasons why you can't do something. He calls it the resistance. And how do you break through the resistance? And that comes from your inner dialogue. And our dialogue builds based on all the things that we learn. It's based on our experiences. The reason we make choices, and the reason we make the choices we do, is based on past experience. We make future decisions based on the experiences of the past. So we need to change what we're learning today in order to change our decision-making ability later down the road. So it's the same when I'm procrastinating. Why am I not doing this right now? Or why am I not getting this project done? If I start to ask myself this question, what do you need right now to make that progress? I'll look at it and say, I don't know the answer to this question. Fine. Why don't you know the answer to this question? Because I need to go ask this person. What do you need to do right now to get that thing? Okay. Once that is out of the way, all of a sudden the project starts to flow. And progress can move on. And the dialogue really helps for anything. So procrastination, it can help for frustration, stress, getting progress, homework, like doing a work around your house, whatever it is. When we think back to burnout and recovery, when we think back to stressful times, when we think back to rebuilding our shortcuts and the unusual challenges we're faced with, the question, what do I need right now, is your first step in dealing with it. Your answer will vary every single time, and only you can answer that question. You may not like the answer, for sure, but as you get better with the dialogue, it will improve. I need ice cream might be a good initial answer. But then you challenge that. And it may end up, the right answer is a walk around the park. And when thinking about what you need right now, I like to go through my checklist. And last year, I touched on it a little bit a second ago, was I put together my thoughts on wellness. I was so frustrated with the wellness garbage that gets thrown around corporate. It doesn't help anybody. I put together my little guide for my checklist of what I need for wellness. And I've got my 3 buckets, my physical, my mental, my social. Those are the 3. And I go through my checklist for what do I need right now. And it's usually one of those 3. From a physical perspective, it's diet, fitness, sleep. From a mental perspective, it's self-love, self-care, and my belief system. And from social, it's a support system, it's meeting new people, and it's micro interactions. And you can go back to the other one. I'm not going to go through all that stuff again, but we need those 3 aspects. And generally, always for me, not just generally for me, but I would say generally for you and everybody else, it's something in one of those categories. It pretty much covers everything in your life. And as I think through the struggles we're going to have with the remainder of the pandemic, the social aspect is going to be a big one. And we need that support system. We need that. We spend so much time on Zoom for coworkers. We might need to add an extra Zoom call with a friend. We might need to go for a walk outside, socially distant, of course, but at least say hi to a neighbor and get those little micro interactions. There are countless online networking events now with Zoom where you can get group Zoom calls put into a separate room where you can meet new people. We actually have to do the work in order to fill these different gaps. Are you making good eating choices? Are you getting outside every day? Are you being physically fit? All of these things. Are you getting your sleep? What do you need right now? Sometimes it's a nap, and that's okay. All of these are your framework to get this inner dialogue going. We need to have this conversation with ourselves. Do you know what you as an individual need? And that's not a simple question. We generally look to something external for something we need, but generally it's internal. And we need to have that conversation with ourselves. Have the conversation out loud. Doesn't matter. Right now you're not really hanging out with strangers, so just have the conversation out loud. If your spouse thinks you're crazy, then just explain it. We're all a little crazy. It's kind of fun. But that's what we need to do for managing the pandemic in the moment, getting this dialogue going, is what do I need right now in this moment? We could talk about presence. We could talk about all of this stuff, being present in the moment, all these things that just sound so hippie. But this is how to do it. And that's what presence is all about. Not worrying about tomorrow, not worrying about last week. What do I need right now in this moment? And you'll be surprised with some of that answer. And work on that and get that dialogue going, because that's going to help you beyond. Next week, I'm looking at the calendar. I'm going to do my 2020 wrap-up. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but I'm going to do a 2020 wrap-up. One more podcast for the rest of the year. And then I'm taking time off and focusing on the book launch, which is coming out January 19th. So if you could find a good goal for you, find your voice, do it, get that inner dialogue going, get that question going for the remainder of 2020 and into 2021. That's going to be helpful for you as you sit in your unusual situation right now. I know that will be very helpful for you. And it could be anything. What do I need to do to start a business right now? What do I need to do for a new job right now? What do I need to do in this moment to cut out the distraction of everything else? The BS that flies around. Everything outside of you is garbage. What right now in the moment do you need? All of those other things, move them out of the way and get moving on what you need to do. And so with that, have a great week. Enjoy. Thanks for listening.